You laughing at his photo still, Jeff?
Mm-hmm.
It's killing me. That photo is killing me, guys.
You look like you should be on a sitcom.
Awful. Awful.
It's all good.
All right. Now I can see the comments.
How old is that photo, Steve?
I'm going to say it's, well, I was on with you guys and I had an iPhone, so it's probably only 6 years old. It looks much older. Much
It's
older.
not that different.
Well, it's that, and I'm like, you caught me mid, like, hey.
You look like a man in a never mind.
Yeah, I know. We can't. It's broadcasting. You can get this audio later.
Sorry, I think mine and Jeff's photos are. Jeff's yours might be
not
from
much better.
20 years ago.
Not quite.
You had that photo when you were at mile 1, so it's at least from 08.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think mine's from
My
Checkered
author
Flag.
page on Amazon, I use a photo from second grade. So,
Well, there you go.
you guys may.
We've used
Yeah,
that one
you may
before.
Oh yeah. Oh, you have? Okay. Yeah, I had a couple big teeth back then, and then the rest of the teeth grew into it.
Well,
I
at
think
least we
everybody
got
knew
your
this was
book
gonna-
up there.
Yes. My I've had 2 since then. So there you go.
Yeah. Do you get a lot of orders?
I do. Mostly the ridiculously simple car selling. I sell sell a few dozen a month.
Really? That's cool.
Yeah, just what people order on Amazon. Assumptive selling. I sold more than 1,000 copies of that. So, and made $24 a copy. So that was pretty good.
Very nice.
All right,
But,
5
yeah, I only
seconds. 3.
All right.
And boom.
You always wonder what kind of money there was in publishing books on Amazon like that.
They just make it easy. There's not a, if you're going to self-publish, you're not looking to get rich. I know a lot of people will like do their Kindle copy at 99 cents and then encourage a bunch of orders so they can show that they were a bestseller on Amazon. I don't, I write books for me. They're cathartic, to write the books. But as long as we're on books, let's start with books. This one's doing really well right now. Ridiculously Simple Car Selling. We'll get into why that is later. This one pops up every now and then. Ridiculously Simple Sales Management. It is the companion piece to the car selling one. And then this one struggles a bit. And I'm going to do a blog post, Ridiculously Simple Customer Experience. And what I mean it struggles a bit is that even searches for customer service training books on Amazon are really low compared to car selling books. And when you think about it, 90% of people, well, also, but I mean, there's probably, 100 times more people involved with serving the customer outside of car dealerships versus car salespeople. And even when I look at a Google Trends report on customer service training versus car selling, how to sell cars, that type of search, they're pretty equal. And with as shitty as customer service became during COVID and,
and
just
remains.
after the lockdown and remains. Yeah. And now there's no excuse, right? There was an excuse because we had labor shortages. We had material shortages, supply shortages, all those things, and that hurt the customer experience. But it hasn't recovered at a lot of places. So
No.
yeah.
No.
Hey, I did want to, before we get into the TikTokers out there, it dawned on me this morning. Hey, remember when you guys used to make guests drink beer on this show? What? Yeah, Alex,
It
it
was a
was
while
right
ago.
before your time. Yeah, it was. It was right before you joined as the co-host. Yeah, it was a weird time, especially 10 a.m. Pacific time for me to be cracking open a brew on a Friday. But anyway, with no football game
That
on,
was,
nothing. It was, yeah, that was a short-lived experiment. Anyway.
yeah. Yeah.
Anyway.
I don't think back to those days. Well, out of all your books, I think my favorite is Shit Sandwich.
Yeah, it's for me. It's neck and neck with 30,000 Pound Gorilla as my favorite. It is the kind of book, though, that the TikTokers should be watching, right? Or watching, reading. I see these, and you saw my post on Facebook. I also did it on LinkedIn and Twitter. I keep seeing these shared TikTok posts. I'm not on the TikTok, and I have to say the TikTok because I'm over 50. You have to put the in front of everything, the Walmart, the TikTok. And so I'm not on the TikTok, but on the Twitter, I see people sharing these millennials, doing and Gen Zs, they're doing the selfie and their selfie video, and they're lamenting about how they can't make rent, or they're
Yeah.
not going to be able to afford food this week or whatever. And they've got all of these, and they've got all these reasons, the inflation, it's going up and what. But I see in the video, they're in a real nice apartment, usually very large, lots
Or
of
a nice
expensive
car.
electronics, nice car. Yeah, yeah. They're in front of their leased BMW or whatever. When I lived in the Dallas area back in the day, when a really expensive luxury car was 50,000, they would you'd see these brand new BMWs and Mercedes parked in front of apartment complexes, and they were called the $50,000 millionaires, is what the locals called them. But anyway, I digress. So it's been a
There's a
problem
lot of
since
those
before
around
millennium.
now.
Yeah, and they're all upside down. But yeah, so there is a disconnect between their income and their outgo that all of these people seem to suffer from, right? They're ordering DoorDash, Uber Eats. They've got subscriptions for everything. They're on Hulu Plus, and they've got Netflix, and they still have Amazon. They've got Amazon Prime, and they've got Pandora and Spotify, right? And it just seems odd to me because we were poor, and that's what I put in the post. We grew up very poor. As kids, we didn't know we were poor, but we had a lot of beans and rice. We had a roast on Saturday that was leftovers Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. All right, we had spaghetti, at least once a week, if not more, and eating out was a luxury back then. It was a real treat, and it was special occasions only, or like
Ponderosa.
somebody, yeah, Ponderosa. We had. I think it was called. Somebody from Arizona will remind me what it was called, but we had Peter Piper pizza, which was all you could eat, and then we also had I think it was Pepe's Mexican Grill, but somebody will correct me. You run up the little flag when you want more food, and they would just and they would bring out just constant food, but it was anyway, super cheap, and it's a big family place. But yeah, that's the kind of places we ate, and McDonald's was literally. I mean, if we went to McDonald's 5 times a year, when
It's a
I,
treat.
between the time I was 8, 8 until I don't know, graduated high school, it, it would have been a crazy year if we went more than 5 times in one year. And today there are
Now
people
that's
who
a
are
little
eating
too much.
McDonald's. Yeah, too much McDonald's.
Yeah.
And that now there are people eating it. I see the drive-throughs at our local Taco Bell and McDonald's, and it doesn't matter. the drive-throughs are crazy full all the time. And anyway, so my advice was buy a
No.
crock pot, learn to cook,
Well,
that kind of stuff.
it's in some, like, we were doing a little comparison here the other day, and just looking at the cost of hamburger meat and buns and whatnot, and by the time you're done, it is cheaper to go to McDonald's.
I'll disagree because I have a millennial son who tells me the same thing. It One of the things, and even today when I don't have food insecurity and never did because we didn't know it was called that. But I still allow what's on sale to drive what I'm going to eat. And so I don't
Mm-hmm.
need to pay full price for hamburger meat. I have a freezer, right? So I'll buy a 3 pound chub when it's on sale. So, and then when I'm, and I'll have enough of it so that when it comes around time to eat that, I have it. But yeah, I won't buy the buns when they're $5 for an 8 pack. I'll wait for them to be on sale, and
Six
I'll
bucks
let
today.
I'll let the grocery store drive what I'm gonna, a lot of times what I'm gonna eat, because again we've got freezers. I have a vacuum sealer, which is not cheap, but it makes the food cheaper when you do that. I buy canned beans when they're on sale. Um, But my argument to my millennial son who said it costs more to eat at home than it does to eat out is, they're going online and they're finding a recipe, and then they're running out and buying all of these ingredients that they didn't have, and then they're making this meal, but they never use the cumin again, or they never use the
Mm-hmm.
garlic powder, or very rarely, or what, all these paprika and things that they bought, versus buying a few basics. You don't need everything. Getting the cheap Walmart $1.29 or 98 cent uh, spices, and then finding a way to make things with those. That was part of his disconnect. He didn't really look at it that way. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, but look, as I said in my post, I feel for these folks. I really do. I mean, I've been there. I don't like that. That pit in your stomach is not a good feeling, and I feel for them. But they need to make adjustments to their lives first, and start recognizing the difference between wants and needs, right? And focus on the needs. And then I ended the post with an Abe Lincoln quote that discipline is choosing between what you want now and what you want most. And we are a society of people who always goes for instant gratification, whether it's in a dealership. The way I teach it in a dealership is, instant gratification is surfing through your Instagram feed, right? Delayed gratification is making a phone call, right? Calling a B back or calling an internet lead. And it takes discipline to choose between what you want now, instant gratification, and what you want most, the delayed gratification. So, anyway, I know I sound terribly old. And I was, Jeff, before you came on, I was telling Alex about, it's really cliche to lament about the next generation. And there's a great Socrates quote that I'll butcher, so I won't even. I'll just paraphrase it. But basically, that this quote is about that next generation always being about luxury and wanting those things and not willing to work for them and all of that. And you could take that quote and put it in today's language, and people would say that's what that's the issue. But you could also take that quote and put it in the 1950s language, and people who were adults in the 50s would say, "Yeah, that's the problem with the next generation." So
Mm-hmm.
anyway,
Yeah, one generation always complains about the next generation.
yep,
But going back to your, growing up, I was the exact same scenario. We didn't have a lot of money, but as a kid, I had no idea. It was Salisbury steaks every night, mashed
yep,
potatoes, because my grandparents had a huge garden. Um, we slaughtered pigs every fall. Everyone would chip in, get 4 or 5 pigs. Uh, so there's huge freezers, lots of food, but it's not until you get a little older and you look back, it's like, shit, we really didn't have, I don't want to say we grew up poor, we didn't go without, but there were no
Right.
extra luxuries, you know. But kids nowadays, they were born with luxuries. So as you talk about getting rid of the Starbucks, getting rid of maybe all the subscription models and such, they're so used to it, and
Well, here's
and then the younger generation grew up with instant gratification because they grew up with iPads and iPhones.
it goes, if you want to put some comparisons out there over time. So one, I heard a stat the other day that like more than 50% of the world lives better than the monarchies of old. So we live better than the kings and queens of Middle Ages. All right, that's to be expected. But you know what the average house, or sorry, what is the poverty line now? Isn't it something like 50,000 a year?
Yeah, I think it's above that, but yeah,
Yeah.
it is. With age comes the ability to make better choices. Alex called it wisdom before you got on, Jeff, in versus just being old. And you see things, and you make adjustments based on those things. But there are some, in their defense, in the younger generation's defense, we're just getting out of this amazing amount of free money, and where these $1,800 checks just arrived from the government, and so this thought of doing without, people are just not in that mode right now. I did have a millennial, and not one of my sons, but I did have a millennial comment to me recently about their credit card debt, and they said, "Well, no, the government's just going to cancel it for me anyway." And so, I, you know, I didn't want to ask if he was kidding because I didn't want to embarrass him in front of others when he said it. I just put it in my mind, and thought I'd talk about it one day, and so now I am. I think there are people out there who believe that this debt is not real that they have, and maybe it's because we are not canceling, we're transferring debt that is real onto the taxpayers, and so maybe there's a group of millennials and Gen Zs that believes my car payment's going to get canceled someday, or my credit card debt's going to get canceled someday. And, we know that's not the case. So,
yeah, not a good idea to live that way.
No, not at all. Not at all. And debt removes choice.
Maybe if you don't hold an American passport, things will be better for you.
That could be. Well, sure. I mean, yeah, you get a $10,000 gift card and no questions asked. And, there is a weird, and that's why I sort of, I want to give some of them a pass, the complainers, because there is a belief, and it's founded in at least the facts as they see them, that there's a lot of free money out there, and that the government is going to be there to take care of you. And until you start to understand that ain't nobody going to take care of you, you don't start doing without. But what I don't sort of forgive any of them for is this concept that commercials are bad. Commercials on my Spotify or Pandora feed, I can't have commercial. My gosh, we had that if you stream a show today that was a 30-minute show back in the 80s, it's 21 or 22 minutes of content, and you had 8 or 9 minutes of commercials for every 30-minute show. When we talk about commercials on Spotify or commercials that are on streaming services today, it's 3 minutes. No, it's 3 minutes an hour. But even that, that's what I have to give up to get this free entertainment. I'm willing to do that. And again, maybe because we all come from a different place where, there were commercials on everything. Nothing was delivered in a streaming fashion. Radio wasn't, TV wasn't, any of that. But anyway, that to me, that seems like the easy one to do, right? And you stack up all those subscriptions, and for some people, it's $100 a month, right? And $100 a month, that's real money, right? I mean, that starts to add up. So
Yeah.
anyway,
No, I'm with you.
now I'm sounding old again, like my wife said on that post. That's what she commented.
Wise, not old.
Thank you.
I was gonna comment, but I didn't.
Really? Because you rarely hold back on the social media. So
Yeah, whatever.
yeah, okay.
Oh
I'm
my
just
shit!
saying.
Oh my shit!
You think that's
Oh
him
my shit gets
not
shadow
holding
banned.
back? Right?
Yeah. You what was that, Alex?
So do you think that's
So,
him not holding back? You should see this text thread we're in.
I can only
yeah,
imagine.
I get shadow
Well,
banned too often.
the good news is that the government is reading your text strings, so there you go.
Yep.
Eventually someone will come and put you in a re-education camp, and probably me now for making that joke. So there you go.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the knock on the door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, they don't knock
just for
anymore.
talking to Jeff, you're in trouble.
Yeah, indeed. No, it's a no-knock warrant now. So that's other good news. You don't have to. There's no pressure like, oh, I've got to let them in. No, don't worry, they'll come on in. So there you go.
Yep.
Anyway, hey, how about the car business?
How's the consulting business doing?
Consulting business is great. It's unfortunate, but when times are good, nobody needs me, and when stuff starts to hit the fan a little bit, all of a sudden I'm in demand. But I am, we don't have room for more consulting clients. We are working on a few projects, a couple applications that non-consulting clients would be able to buy, stuff that we provide free to our clients today. But I don't have the capacity, and I've thought about hiring additional consultants, but I've seen how that works, and if they're terrific, they go off and do their own thing, right? And maybe take your clients with them. And if they're not terrific, they destroy your reputation and they hurt your clients. So, we've got a good staff of folks, all named Stauning, by the way, just coincidentally. Well, it just happened. I tried to hire diversity, but all my sons are my sons. So anyway, but they're building, they're smart kids, and they're building some great products in the background that we will we'll roll out as we can. And in the meantime,
Nice.
I'll keep writing and keep working with my clients. So,
what's some of the pain points that you're seeing with your dealerships currently?
So and specifically, it's a lot of new clients that are really struggling. But I do have, I've got clients in the same, dealers in the same dealer group, where the dealer group is my client, and then I'm working with one store on process. But one of their other stores, they caught on to process back when they didn't need it, right? So we have a lot of salespeople still in order taker mode across the industry, and with some of my clients, but almost all of my new clients, where we treat prospects like suspects, and they got to prove to us that they really want to buy before we're going to move forward, before we're going to waste our time. So if it's a situation where a salesperson's answering leads, well, they may make one phone call, may not. If the guy really wants a car, he'll respond to the emails or texts. And then, if they do get the customer on the phone, they want to make sure the guy's got all the information, right? And, you got a 620 credit score. Yeah, you're probably looking at 12 or 13%. Are you going to have 5,000 or 6,000 to put down? In the midst of order taker mode, I was actually working at one of my clients' locations, and a salesperson caught a phone up. Woman was interested in buying one of their vehicles, but she had a vehicle she needed to sell. Of course, this dealership, like all dealerships, takes trade-ins. And when she described her trade-in to the salesperson, and I happened to just be sitting next to him, he didn't think anything of it. He said, "Oh, yeah, you want to go sell that on Craigslist first yourself, and then give me a call."
Oh, wow.
Like, what in the world are you talking about? Anyway, so that's what order taker mode looks like. And it happens on the phone. It happens back and forth via email, and it happens a ton on the lot where, salespeople will just vomit payments on someone rather than take them through a road to the sale. And, the customer gets so much information, they don't want to take the test drive because maybe it's not for me. Maybe now's not the right time. Maybe I don't need, 4-wheel drive kind of thing. And so they go back home and do some research, or they go buy somewhere else. And that's a leadership failure, by the way. To be very clear, everything that's happening with your salespeople today, if they're underperforming, if they're not following your process, if they're not, really closing legitimately at high rates, whether it's a lot up or phone up or email up, that's a leadership failure. I also see when you're in order taker mode, you don't fill your day with sales focused activities. And so that's a leadership failure, right? Where the sales manager's sitting at the desk and, he or she looks out and sees everybody in the vaping circle or, talking fantasy football, or right now talking, NCAA tournament. Not keeping them busy and productive throughout the day it's a leadership failure. And if you just work to take people out of order taker mode and let's start with busy, just keep them busy. That'll cure all ills. I mean, that will, all of a sudden you'll start selling cars to people, and you'll have more people taking first pencil, for example, instead of, beating you to death to save $50. And that comes from properly following the road to the sale. But I got to tell you, to prove it's a leadership problem, and I'm going to name the dealership, even though I didn't name it in my LinkedIn post about it. One of my sons was looking for a pre-owned Jeep Wrangler. We saw one at Findlay Jeep, which is right near our house. And so we didn't call ahead or anything. We just, it's literally a 3-minute drive. We just drove over to see it. We got in the store, and sales manager greeted us, and we told him what we wanted to see. He never asked for our names, not even first names. They didn't have a salesperson in the store right now. They were over next door at Findlay Chrysler Dodge Ram. They split off their Jeep store into a separate store. Said he'd get somebody over right away with the Jeep. We thanked him. Kid came up, pulled the Jeep up, backed it in. It was very nice. He backed it in, had it started. We went out, took a look at it. And the salesman never even asked for our name, but because he introduced himself, I gave him our first names. We listened to the engine for a while. I looked for leaks. It clearly was pretty rode hard and put away wet. And so it wasn't a fit for us. And we thanked him and we left. We're ghosts to that dealership.
No phone number.
No phone number. Look, the sales manager, when we said the vehicle we wanted, all he had to say was, great, let me get your driver's license. We'll get it scanned. So as soon as the sales rep brings it over here, you're able to take it for a test drive. I would have pulled my license out. I'd had my son give his license. That would have been no problem. Nobody would have a problem with that unless they didn't have a license. And then he could have said, oh, hey, by the way, what's a good phone number for you? Hey, great. Can I get your email, or what's a good email for you? Yeah, but the manager, and by the way, manager was not busy. They had no salespeople on the floor because they had no customers on the floor. I don't know what he was doing. Salesperson didn't ask either, but why would he? Nobody makes him do that, right? No manager's going to go out and say, hey, how'd you let those people leave? I didn't get a TO. Yeah, that's an issue today. And, for every dealer out there who wonders, gosh, why is our inventory growing? Why aren't we growing market share? Why is every deal seem like, we're pulling teeth with the customers? Hey, how about this thing called the road to the sale? It really works.
Are you a big proponent of the TO?
Yeah. So I believe in 4 rules that if salespeople would live by 4 rules with every up, they would absolutely sell more cars. And the 4 rules are this: no one leaves the lot unless they're in the CRM. No one leaves the lot unless I have their contact information. No one leaves the lot until they've been presented numbers, and no one leaves the lot unless they've met a manager. And look, I'm not an idiot. It's not going to happen every time. Some people are just not going to give you their license and let you scan it. But if they want to take a demo drive, we're going to scan their license, and we're going to get contact info and all that. But if you go into that situation, that every fresh up who walks in, that I'm not going to let them leave unless I get those 4 things, and I don't mean, trapping them in the car, locking them in the dealership, but I mean everything short of that. If you live by those 4 rules, it's amazing. Magic happens. You start selling cars because you use the assumptive selling meet and greet. Hey, welcome to Steve's Ford. Which vehicle did you come to test drive today? 80% of people are going to blurt it out. I'm going to say, great, let me get your driver's license. We'll get you registered. We'll get you some keys. We'll get you on that test drive. And every one of those 80% who blurted out, I'm here to see the new F-150. I'm here to see this used Mustang you got on your website. Whatever they said, 100% of those people will give you their license unless they don't have a license or they were planning to steal your vehicle. And so now I've just got them in the CRM with contact information from 80% of my fresh ups. Now, my next one is nobody leaves until they see numbers. Guess what? If they've got a trade, that's an easy one. If they don't have a trade, I'm still taking them through the road to the sale. And when we get back from the demo drive, we're going to need to go inside, right? And I'm going to use all the old school techniques, but that are very customer friendly, truly are. And then they're going to come inside to see numbers. And guess what? If I'm presenting numbers as a salesperson and they're pushing back on those numbers, well, that's when the manager's going to come out and help me out, right? Do their job. My hope is, though, even, and in a perfect world, the manager would meet them before the demo drive, called early manager introduction. But again, when you do those things like early manager introduction, magic happens. More people take first pencil. More people move through the road to the sale, all the way through to the write-up. It's crazy. And again, Finley Jeep, they weren't busy. There was nobody there. And the road to the sale, throw it out. Let's just spend more money on marketing, right? We're not spending enough on Google, right? Whatever. So God bless them. And the reason I'm calling them out is I was really surprised, right? They're a big group. They allegedly have all the same experts we had at Asbury, that kind of thing, but it ain't happening for them, at least not that day. Maybe, it's like when you mystery shop a store. Oh, well, you caught us on the day Barbara wasn't here, right? Okay. Well, maybe Barbara wasn't there, but Barbara, she follows the road to the sale. He's caught us on a bad day.
With one exception, that has been my experience with every dealership I've visited in the past 3 years.
Really? That's order taker mode. Yeah. But see, that's the whole point. When the price was the price and inventories were tight, you're going to sell the car anyway. So if I don't sell it to this guy, I'll sell it to the next guy. And oh, by the way, if I'm getting 25% commission, I'm making $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 a car. So I could live on 8 cars a month, right? No big deal. Today, and tomorrow, even worse, right? But so look, and to be fair to salespeople out there, if I had been selling cars from May 2020 through the end of 2022, maybe mid 2023, I would have been in order taker mode too.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
You were almost forced to be into that.
Yeah. And, unless I was paid a flat, if I'm paid a percent of the gross, order taker mode all day long, because I could go from being 30, 35 cars a month to being 15 and making more money than I did in 2019 at 35 a month. So, but if I'm paid a flat, no, I gotta stick to what works, the processes and word tracks and all of that. But salespeople still in order taker mode is probably one of the bigger issues that's still happening out there today. But the rising inventories are really starting to scare a lot of dealers, because even though it's easy for them to get rid of a vendor, and as I said earlier, throw baby out with the bathwater, get rid of a vendor that's actually helping them. The higher inventories are increasing their marketing costs, because it's also increasing competition for the same in-market buyers. And so, everybody is out there chasing those folks. And even if you're, say, not using a third party like Cars.com or Auto Trader or Car Gurus, but you're using the Google vehicle listing ads under Performance Max in paid search. Now there's suddenly more inventory flooding into there because everybody's using it. Where, when those things first came out, Auto Trader, Car Gurus, and Cars.com, CarMax, were really the only heavy users of vehicle listing ads. Now everyone is. And so that's driving up costs. And so what recommend to my clients and help them with is, we've got to examine all the marketing budgets and just make sure that they're delivering an acceptable ROI. Because I see a lot of waste still with traditional paid search, right? The pay per click advertising. I see dealers wasting money on anything beyond the basic listings on the third party sites. I see dealers wasting money because they're on the third party sites, but half their inventory is not priced or not photographed, right? That's just a big waste of money. And so, that's where dealers are just struggling a little bit because, again, I didn't have to do a lot of marketing during the pandemic or during the chip shortages. Now I have to do a lot, and so I'm going to throw shit against the wall to see what sticks. And then you couple that with salespeople in order taker mode because, had Finley got our information and then properly followed the road to the sale and did what they should do to credit the marketing sources, they would have asked us, by the way, where did you see the vehicle? Right. And then we could have told them where we saw it. And then they'd know, oh, okay, so Cars.com is working or Auto Trader is working because they would have put me in the CRM as having come from Auto Trader. What's that?
Have you seen the Wrangler leases lately? That's probably the best deal out in the market.
It's what?
That might be the best deal out there right now.
It probably is. I'm not a lease guy because I don't finance either. As I said earlier when we talked about millennials, debt removes choice, and so I've ever since the Great Recession, I have worked hard to reduce all my debt. I had a guy that worked with us at Asbury, and when that first started to hit, before I left Asbury to start my own business, he got laid off along with a few others that were high dollar folks like he was. And he told me at the time, he said, I am going to fix my lifestyle so that if I ever lose my job again, I can go work at McDonald's and make my nut. And what's interesting, and he's pretty well known in the industry. I won't embarrass him by naming him here. It was interesting as I talked to him a few months ago, and I reminded him of that quote. I said, I remember you said that, and I decided to live my life that way. And I'm there, if I lost everything today, I could go work at McDonald's and make my nut. And I asked him if he was, and he said no. And so, like all of us who give advice, we almost never take our own damn advice. So anyway.
True. Yeah. Keep the monthly slow.
Shortly.
What's that?
Or only live it for a short term.
Yeah, exactly. So there are some tremendous deals coming out and that are already out. Lots of $15,000 off MSRP on big trucks. The issue, I think, for consumers is that the MSRPs went up in some cases 50, 60%. If you look at the 2019 MSRP on something, and then you look at the 2024 MSRP on it, it's great you're knocking $15,000 off of an F-150, but I remember when I can get an F-150 XLT 4x4 brand new in 2019. What was the MSRP? $38,000, and it was $10,000 off that, so I was paying $28,000. Okay, so now I'm paying, and I'm going to butcher the MSRP now, but now I'm paying $15,000 off 50 or 58, right? So, so that's troubling for consumers. And then thank God there's a lot of subvented rates out there from the OEMs because, we were starting to see new car buyers with an 800 Beacon getting quoted 9%, right? Near the end of 2023 before a lot of the manufacturers started to come out with 2.9, 0.9, that kind of thing. So, could you imagine just, having an 800 credit score and getting hit with a 9% on a $60,000
selling cars
truck?
in the 90s, Steve.
That's how it was in late 90s whenever I started selling. Yeah. 7 to 9%.
7 was an amazing rate. Like if you got 7.5 or something, that was incredible.
Yeah. I remember when they went down to 6.
Yeah, that was huge.
You know, the yeah, that reminds me of that post I did with millennials. Um, mortgage rates were 18% back in the 80s.
Hmm.
um, and
But at the
so, and
same time,
inflation was
cars were a
higher
lot
than it is
cheaper.
now.
Houses were a lot cheaper.
Sure,
Well,
but you
so
also
keep in
didn't.
mind here,
My dad
there
never made
was,
$30,000 his whole life. So
Yeah.
yeah, but you got to go back a little further. So prior to the 70s, we had a pretty standard inflation rate. And then the 70s jacked up just like we got right now. Uh, and then, people got used to it. Took like the 80s, you had
Hmm.
the high rates, and the 90s you still had some higher rates, even though they were a little less. But you're right. I mean, to say, Jeff, like the pricing wasn't that insane, but we also hadn't seen the inflation rates like we have now. You think about
sure.
inflation. Somebody said this the other day, and I hadn't thought about it this way, but maybe I'm just stupid. But you hear, okay, so we had 7% inflation according to somebody's calculation, and then 3%, and now it's like, whatever. But you don't think, like, when it was 7% and then it went to 3%, it's not like the prices went back down. So
Correct.
everything just kept going up and up and up and up, and drastically. So
Yeah. And
Yeah,
very rare do you see the
it
prices ever come back down.
it's like well, it's the opposite of compound interest, right? If you think about it, compounding is terrific, except when you're talking about inflation. And so, 3% on top of 7% is actually more than 10% because it's 3% on a
Hmm.
higher number. And yeah, we haven't had a deflation. We have that wonderful word called disinflation, whereas you go from 7% to 3%. Look, it's disinflation. No, it's inflation, and it's harder to do to pay for things. And then, look, I don't know if you've had your insurance update, your auto insurance update recently, but I'm someone with no accidents in the last I don't know how many years, and none and no tickets, and I've been with Allstate for gosh, more than 2 decades, and we just went up 24%. Uh,
Jesus.
I think, yeah, I think October is when we got our renewal. It was 24% year over year, and
Yeah.
so I shopped them.
what state are you in?
I'm in Idaho, and we have no problems here that way. No insurers are leaving the state. We don't have a lot of uninsured drivers in the state, that kind of thing.
But
Hmm.
that's why,
But
because there's like each insurance company can only write new policies in about 24 states right now. So it's a little different for each one, but they're not writing policies for all 50. And good luck if you live in Florida or California. Ooh,
yeah,
hopefully you can't hear that
yeah, State
on air.
Farm just State Farm's not writing homeowners insurance anymore in California, and I just read this morning they are going to not renew on 72,000 properties this month or whatever, that are up for renewal. They're not, and including all apartments that they were insuring, which is something like I don't know 40,000. My numbers could be off, but I shopped Allstate. Then I took our coverage and shopped it with State Farm and Geico, and my new higher rate was still better than what I could get from either one of those. So
Really?
I so I bit the bullet. I ate this shit sandwich, as we like to say, and moved on. But anyway, uh,
Yeah. Ours is coming up for
So
renewal, so that scares me. Plus, I have a daughter I'm going to be having to add.
yeah, one thing I did find out though with mine is that so we have three vehicles under it, and two of them we have full coverage, and one we just had, the basic liability stuff that you need, and the difference between full coverage and basic liability has shrunk, and so I
Yeah.
we just upgraded the other one to full coverage because it's like $30 a month, maybe tops. The
Yep.
difference, it's insane because it used to be hundreds of dollars a month, right?
Yeah.
For
It's
or
not
at
anymore.
least
Yeah.
a high percentage. Yeah. So
Yeah. I just go ahead and give full coverage even on the older vehicles. Just makes sense.
yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, especially with the cost of repairs.
well,
Um,
here's
Exactly.
that
here's the thing. You speak of cost of repairs, so you know that healthcare coverage is the biggest inflationary thing that we've had in the past 2 years, followed by cost of vehicle repairs.
Mm-hmm.
So 18% healthcare coverage, I think, is the number. 18% increase in healthcare premiums, right? Which we don't all see because usually our employer pays those
Mm-hmm.
for
Right.
us. And then, but cost of repairs has gone up significantly. That's another, I think, like 14% across the board.
Well, thank God we have the HCA or whatever it's called, right? Didn't we pass something years ago that saved healthcare for everybody? No, I might be
Obamacare?
wrong. Oh no, don't get political on me. Go get your tin hat. You go get your tinfoil hat. You. No. Uh, yeah. Anyway, well, boy, we could do a couple hours on that. But back to automotive. There is a belief among some that AI has a threat to some industry jobs, and so far, the CRM companies and similar attempts at and I'm going to do it this way, AI, have really still just been decision trees, not
Mhm.
very effective,
Mm-hmm.
right, in the communication. And then there is a company or two that's using the large language models like ChatGPT to
That's the only differentiator between those
yeah,
AI companies and your
yes,
CRM, basically.
but yeah, but the my worry for that is using ChatGPT and like your chat program or any large language model there. Um, is it just going to help consumers eliminate a dealership and maybe even give incorrect information, right? Because we know, Gemini and ChatGPT and all of them give incorrect information sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
um, and in a process to be helpful, you know, is the large language model going to be a net increase in sales, or is it just going to reduce some cost, but not necessarily drive any efficiencies? Because it reduced the cost, but it may have reduced my opportunity to do business. And I'm talking about the way the large language models are working today. Eventually they will be way smarter than any of us, and maybe smarter than all of us combined, right? And they'll be called Skynet,
Wonderful.
and we will need
Well, the one in
someone.
China is already called that.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but
Wonderful.
when I'm looking at these things, and I started looking at the large language models doing chat, and I wasn't really impressed. I think we've all read the accounts of some guy who convinced it at a Chevy dealer to sell him a vehicle for zero. I don't know if you saw that. That it was on like Jalopnik, if that's how you pronounce that site, and a few others. But and they've allegedly fixed that, so great. But as I'm looking at that, I'm looking at chat in general. It's really dawned on me that I'm not sure dealers need chat at
No.
all. Sorry to all the chat companies out there, but when I read the chat transcripts, the fact is that all those questions that are basic questions, how late is service open, how do I schedule service appointment, anything service related, websites are well designed today. That's real easy to find.
Except the
And
service
then
scheduler.
yeah, right. And outsourced chat doesn't do a good job of pointing people to the service scheduler. They might get your information and have the dealership call you. Well, shit, if I wanted to talk to somebody on the phone, I'd have called the dealership, right? But then, the other thing is that with proper calls to action on the website, you don't need chat to move people through a funnel. What chat does is it gives people the opportunity to eliminate the store. And I'm telling you, unless my OEM required it, if it was Stauning Motors, I don't think I'd have chat on my website. And I've told that to a number of my
Really?
clients when we look. Yeah. So I'm not talking about
I wouldn't have
digital
digital
retailing.
retailing either.
Yeah. Well, that's where I was going to go. Digital retailing is a terrific lead gen model. Um, but if you think it's anything other than that on your website, you're wrong. I mean, I love digital retailing done right, which is using it in store to shorten the road to the sale to 60 minutes for a fresh up. But virtually no one's using it for that. It's a widget on their website. So anyway,
The real question,
It's hard to
Steve, is
disagree.
how long before we get out of order taking mode as an industry and get back to being real communicators again, or at least better communicators.
yeah, I look. Some people scoff at the road to the sale because it's a different consumer today. They've got more information, all these things. It's absolutely true, but there's a recent study, JD Power study. 9 out of 10 people, 89% of buyers, said that the test drive is the most influential resource in their decision. So if you think about that, and then you put it into 1990s, 1980s terms, the feel of the wheel seals the deal. And as cliche as that sounds, the fact is that when I got to your lot, let me get my hand in the camera. When I got to your lot, I really thought this was the car I wanted to buy, but I wasn't sure. But as you take me through the road to the sale, you do this thing called build value that people scoff at today, the build value, right? But no, and what build value means, because most people just hear it and they don't understand what it means. People begin to like you, the salesperson, more. They begin to fall in love more with your vehicle. They begin to trust the dealership more. So it builds value in those three pillars that we need. And that by the time they get back from the demo drive, they're at their highest point most likely to buy. Their new car fever has spiked, but that requires a road to the sale, right? Because you're stair stepping that customer up in their love and absolute frenzy to have your stinking vehicle. And so, to try to answer the question on, are we going to get out of order taker mode, or are we going to, or do we need another process or whatever? There were salespeople in order taker mode in 2019. They just have crappy sales managers, right? There were, there were dealers in 2019 who were reporting they were closing 60 to 70% of their fresh ups. Bullshit. They were closing 20% of their fresh ups, and we can prove it. We'll
You
hire
missed all the
lot
guys
counters
with
on
the
a
red
Saturday.
hat.
Yes, exactly. We'll just count humans that come on your lot on a Saturday, and then Monday morning we'll compare it to who got in the CRM, right? And we'll find out, holy cow, you missed 67% of your fresh ups because your salespeople were just vomiting information. And if the guy was a real buyer and not a stinking tire kicker, then I'll put him in the CRM. I mean, we had, I would pick up new clients who didn't have a rule that you had to scan a license before they went on a demo drive. And look, forget about gathering the customer's information so they're not a ghost and moving them through the road to sale. How about we just keep our salespeople safe? Because in 2019, there were a couple of news stories about salespeople getting kidnapped on test drives, and there was no license scan before the demo drive, or people taking the demo drive and then coming back later that night with the fob and stealing the car. Like, just from a liability standpoint, how about we scan licenses and hold people to that? But I know there are still dealers today. My dealers, if I have any clients who aren't scanning licenses for every demo drive, I don't know about it because they know I'll get on my soapbox about how dangerous it is. So
I never thought about it that way, but you're absolutely right.
yeah, and look,
I didn't realize there were dealers who weren't doing it.
Go to a Verizon store and ask to see to see something or whatever. They're going to log in on their iPad, and none of us are like, you don't get my phone number. What? No, we just do it right away. Hey, what? You need my social security number? Hey, you want my kids get out of school at 3:00? You want to pick them up and say your daddy told you? No, I mean, we'll give them all the information. And so asking for the license to take a demo drive, anybody who's not going to do that, they're just planning to steal your car. They don't have a license. And so you just avoided, potential pitfall. But you benefited yourself too. You got their, for that 80% or whatever, you got their contact info. Now you can market to them more cheaply. You can actually do a be-back process. Oh my gosh, imagine that, right? Calling them the next day, that kind of thing. Can't do any of that. Finley Jeep can't do any of that for me and my son.
Well, I was going to say, with your Jeep example, I mean, who knows? They could have traded something in the next day that fit your description.
We had a trade too, and that's the other thing. So
Mm.
imagine if they'd said, even failing up to that point, I'm glad you brought up trade. Even if they failed up to that point, for them to at least say, well, by the way, are you going to be replacing a vehicle? And we would say, yeah, that F-150 over there. And they'd say, well, hey, before you leave, let us give you a firm written offer on it. Just, so you've got that number. I'd have let them put a number on it all day long. And again, now they have an opportunity to get my information, my son's information, put a number on the truck. And in that whole time while I'm waiting for that number, right, they could do some needs analysis. Maybe they got something like you just said. Tomorrow they get something in trade. Now they've got my information. They give me a call. I can come look at it. Anyway, but again, I'm a ghost. So is my son. We're ghosts to that dealership. And their marketing is going to be higher this year. Their marketing dollars that they have to spend is going to be higher because they don't have us in the CRM. And so they're going to have to, get us back some other way.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it too. Yeah. Well, do you think how many months with the month-to-month mentality is it going to take before we see the order taking really go by the wayside?
For some dealers, they'll be in order taker mode a year from now. We are the automotive business is very forgiving because we have franchises, which, while there's still tremendous competition, the fact is that no one else can sell Fords in this location, right? No one else can sell Jeeps in Post Falls, Idaho, or which is where Finley's at, or I'm sure that, they're not going to put a Jeep store in Coeur d'Alene right next door. And so there's a little bit of that. Also, because we have a variable pay plan, we have variable pay plans. As we sell less or make less on those vehicles that we do sell, we just pay the salespeople less, right? It's all in the pay plan. We pay their managers less. It's all in the pay plan. And so that's also why, when we think about it, can you hear my stupid dog, by the way?
Every time.
Mia, shut up! All right. Anyway, that's why during the Great Recession, so few dealerships closed. When you think about any other retail industry that lost that volume of sales, they would have closed 70% of their locations, right? If it's clothing or whatever. But we survive because we have these variable pay plans, these variable pay plans, and we have fixed operations. And so some dealers will never get out of order taker mode. They just won't. They'll just keep trying to hire that superstar, right? And if they do hire that superstar, because they're not going to ever hold him accountable, he will either fall into mediocrity or he'll leave and go somewhere else because he's not very successful there. But when will the max number of dealers get out of order taker mode? I think before the end of this year. Those that are going to adopt a true road to the sale and some discipline and some accountability. If they don't do it this year, then when, right? Because we're at 85 days of inventory now. 3 months from now, we're going to be at 100 days of inventory on new car side. That's my prediction. If you're not going to change now, when are you going to change? So
I wonder what the percentage of those new cars are EVs.
Depends
2%.
on the brand.
I don't know. Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Plus, a lot of so much of the manufacturing has been pulled back that those will begin to self-correct at some point. And the deals on some EVs are just crazy right now. And so those will happen too. I don't know that I would buy an EV. I'd lease an EV all day long because the residuals, we have no idea where they're going to be, but my guess is they're going to be pretty low. So I'd be leasing because they're going to overstate the residual today, and then I can walk away from it in 3 years, right? And
I would be
for
parking
some reason
far
it is
from
worth
my house.
Yeah, well, yeah, indeed, indeed.
At least not close enough for the flames to get to the house on a windy day.
Not ideal for Vermont.
Anywhere with salt.
No.
Salt and super cold temperatures for sure.
Yeah.
Well, Steve,
Boys,
we missed getting into some of the other things we were going to talk about, but definitely covered some good ground today.
always my pleasure. Yeah, I think so. I hope so. I hope every millennial out there watches this, learns a little something, or at least goes out and buys my book, Shit Sandwich, which I wrote in 2018.
God, it's hard.
It was written for millennials, by the way. So, Shit
Yeah, I
Sandwich
sat down with
was.
the kids and read it. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a good book.
It should be the required reading for every first grader in America. Shit Sandwich. You heard it here first.
Yep. All right.
Well, Steve, it's always a pleasure, man.
Truly my pleasure, guys. Thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
For sure.
You got it.
We'll do it again
see you
sometime. See you, everybody.
Take care.